Hello again from my front porch, where it is decidedly chillier than the last time we talked from here. Remember, I was bragging about how we had this really nice sunny time and it was kind of warm, but that the temperatures were going to be going down. Well, they did. Today has been a wet, dreary, rainy, and chilly day all day today. That's why I'm out here on the front porch. Last time I was on the front porch, I was sweating by the time I was done because it was so warm. It is not warm in the front porch because there's no sun out there. Now, the nice thing about this kind of day is the lighting is really great. It diffuses the light as opposed to a really bright sunshine coming in. But it's also chilly then. Whereas when it's sunny out here, I sit out here in a shirt and I'm like, whew, I hope you can't see the sweat for it. Right now, I've only been out here for a little over, a minute or two getting all this ready to go. And already my fingers are getting chilly sitting out here. But it's not just the coat that I'm wearing that I want to draw your attention to with this episode. I actually want to draw your attention to this, my I voted sticker, because I'm wearing it because I voted today. That's right. I'm going to be traveling on Tuesday, ironically, to Washington, D.C., and I wanted to make sure I voted. So I went to the county auditor's office today and I voted in advance and made sure to cast my ballot to get it in. Now, and I'm wanting to, the point of this video, this episode, is to encourage you to make sure you get your vote in. Whether it's early voting like I just did or day of voting, either way, make sure you vote. Your vote is necessary. It is important. And the reason that I'm taking the time to do this is because I spend so much time bad-mouthing politics. So you might get a little whiplash. Wait a minute, Paul, you said they're all, how can now you're telling me to vote? Yes, I am telling you to vote. I am telling you to vote. Because, yes, there are sadly, several individuals who are in the political theater who clearly only are interested in looking out for themselves and or the power of their collective party, that they have very little concern for the people who have elected them to represent them or the rest of us in general. And that is very, very disheartening. It can be very, very sad. And when we talk about voting and about how you should vote and I should vote, I already can hear the pushback on that as well. Things like, it doesn't matter who I vote for. It's always the same crap all the time. It doesn't matter who's in office. Well, it's kind of hard for me to argue about that to some extent. Or, well, it doesn't matter how I vote because the people I vote for never get elected. They never win. Well, I can also understand that in some cases, but we have now seen a number of instances, even over just the most recent years, in which a seat in Congress, for example, that was fairly always dependable as this party suddenly gets flipped to the other side. And it's because of changing demographics and changing interests of voters. And so, when you give up and stop casting your vote the way you want to see things go, that's one less chance somebody that agrees with you in running for office has to actually win. So don't give up on them. And then, of course, there is the others that would say, well, it doesn't matter who I vote for because all elections are rigged and it's whoever they want to win and that's who's going to win. It doesn't matter who I vote for. And, honestly, and I may sound like I should have a tinfoil hat on for this part, but I don't completely dismiss that. I personally do believe that there are shall we say, power players, power brokers in the shadows, behind the scenes, who are pulling the strings on a lot of those influential individuals and entities, organizations, and that that there are agenda, that there are plans, there are initiatives, there are manipulations. And in fact, I think that a lot of the hot button issues that we find ourselves fighting about over and over and over and over, abortion, gun control, all of these kind of things, it seems like there's never a solution. Have you noticed that? Every election cycle, it is, you need to vote for this side or this side because they're going to blah, 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 blah. And we need policy and we need protection, we need... Every election cycle, we have these debates, and there is never solution. There's just stirring it up more. So it keeps us focused on those things and battling each other about those things, when maybe we ought to be paying attention to the things that we're not paying attention to. Just saying. But it's because of that voting is important, because voting is the primary way that we, the people, can hold the elected officials in check. Now, I know if you don't believe in the legitimacy of elections, that it's a hard sell to convince you should vote. But I'm just going to ask you to trust me. Get out there and do it anyway. Because if you're wrong, then you also didn't have your voice included. It is important to not get so cynical and so frustrated that we fail to engage, because there have been a lot of things, a lot of instances in which one or at least a small number of votes have made a huge difference. And don't take my word for it. I have here a document. I've assembled a whole bunch of examples, and I want to just share these with you. And as you're listening to them, I want you to be thinking about how what I am sharing is every single one of these is why you should vote. Make sure, whether you do it in advance or day of, you should vote. Okay, you ready? Here we go. And then these go kind of in reverse. So these are all examples of how one vote, just one vote, made a difference. In 2016, a Vermont State House was determined by one vote out of 2,000. And here's what's really crazy. This was a rematch when these two candidates first faced each other in 2010, 6 years prior. The race was also decided by one vote, but in the other direction. So apparently one or two people decided to that they needed to switch. In 2002, a Republican state house primary in Washington state was determined by one vote out of more than 11,000. One vote out of 11,000. The person who lost, that didn't win, that didn't get the one vote, the person who lost had to wonder what might have been when one of his fellow police officers confided after the election that he forgot to mail in his ballot, that he left it on his kitchen counter and never dropped it in the mail. Now that would have been a tie, theoretically, and so it would have fallen into a different category that we'll talk about in a moment. Also in 2002, a Connecticut State House seat was determined by one vote out of 6,400 cast. In 1996, a South Dakota Democrat named John McIntyre led Republican Hal Wick by just 4 votes out of almost 8,400 for a state legislative seat. There was a subsequent recount and showed that Wick still remained the winner, or that Wick was the winner. It flipped it, that Wick was the winner, but by just one vote. So the final vote total was 4,192 to 4,191. But the state Supreme Court ruled that one ballot for Wick, the winner, was invalid because of an overvote, and therefore that resulted in it being now a tie. Wick eventually still won because the tie was broken by the state legislature, which went for Wick 46 to 20. Then let's go back to 1991. A Virginia State House seat was determined by one vote out of almost 13,000 votes cast. 1882, also in Virginia, Robert Mayo defeated Democrat George T. Garrison 10,505 votes to 10,504. 1854, Illinois Democrat James Allen beat Republican William Archer 8,452 votes to 8,451. 1847, Indiana. Whig candidate George Dunn defeats Democrat candidate David Dobson, 7,455 to 7,454. 1847, Virginia again. Whig Thomas Flournoy wins, 650 to 649. 1829, in Kentucky, Jackson Democrat Nicholas Coleman defeats National Republican Adam Beatty, 2,520 to 2,519. That's what, 150 years? No, gee, that's almost 200 years of examples where actual, literal political examples where merely one vote made the difference. One vote literally decided those elections. But what about if it's not just one vote? What if it's just a small margin? In 2016, in New Mexico, a state house seat was decided by 2 votes out of almost 14,000. Almost 14,000 votes cast. The winner selected by 2 votes. Good thing those people didn't leave them on their kitchen counter. In 2008, Minnesota, in a Minnesota U.S. Senate race, comedian and Democrat Al Franken defeated Republican incumbent Norm Coleman by just 312 votes from almost 2.9 million cast. 2.9 million votes cast. He wins by just 312 votes. 2008 also in Alaska, a state house race was won by only 4 votes out of 10,000. 10,000 votes and 4 made the difference. And of course, back in the year 2000, a lot of people still remember this one, and some people still grumble about it. Candidate George W. Bush won the presidency by winning the state of Florida by a margin of only 537 votes out of almost 6 million votes cast in Florida. And there was a lot of controversy about that. Went to the Supreme Court, all kinds of stuff. Multiple recounts were done, all the kind of things. But in the end, it was not even 550 vote difference out of 6 million votes cast. Those votes all made a difference. And lastly, what if it's a tie? You know, the one example about the one that the police officer's friend left his ballot on the counter. Had he mailed it in, it would have been a tie. And then it would have had to have been decided differently. Well, here's some examples of where there's actually been ties because, potentially one person left it on their counter and didn't submit it, so it couldn't be decided by one vote. It fell into a tie. Here's what happens when it goes into a tie in some scenarios. 2017, again in Virginia. I don't know what it is in Virginia. Again in Virginia, the House of Delegates race ended in a tie out of more than 23,000 votes cast. The tie was broken by pulling a name placed in a film canister out of a bowl. Republican David Yancey was declared the winner. The result was heightened by the fact that the win gave Republicans control of the state house by 1 single seat. So if one individual, especially on the Democrat side, one more individual would have voted, that race would have been won by the Democrat by 1 vote, and the Republicans would not have been able to get the control of the state house by that one person being elected. However, if one more Republican had voted, then that end result would have still happened, but there wouldn't have been a cloud over it by the random drawing, the random chance of it. And so, again, one more vote was all it would have taken to have broken that tie. In 2010, a state house race in Massachusetts ended in a tie, and the courts ordered a do-over. In the rerun, the Republican wound up winning by just 56 votes out of almost 8,000 cast. So there was a slight shift, but not very much. Still, those individual votes counted. In 2002, a tie for a county commissioner seat in Nevada was, and I know, county commissioner, you're like, well, what's a big deal? That's not a big important one. I beg your pardon. Every elected office is an important one. But this is a unique story. That's why I included it on the list too. There was the tie, and it was the tie was determined by drawing the highest card. It's Nevada, Las Vegas. Yeah. Amazingly, both candidates drew a jack. However, the Democrat drew a jack of spades, which beat out the Republicans' jack of diamonds. House rules. And lastly, in 1994, a Wyoming State House seat ended in a 1,941 to 1,941 tie on Election Day. The tie was broken live on NBC's Today Show with the Secretary of State pulling a ping pong ball with the winning candidate's name on it out of the governor's hat. The winner went on to become the Speaker of the State House. Literally, that is the literal definition of an election lottery. Pulling the ping pong ball out of the governor's hat. These are all instances, all examples of where a small, very small number of votes made the difference. In many cases, one vote made a difference. Either one vote made a difference based on who did win, or the lack of one vote resulted in a tie, which created some of those other weird scenarios. Boil it all down to this: your vote matters. Don't waste it. You have, and I have, a rare luxury that so many others around the world in their countries wish they had access to. We have the ability to raise our voice at the ballot box and make an impact. I'm as cynical as the next person, maybe not as cynical as some, but a lot more cynical than others. I do not like some of the candidate options. I do not care for the two political parties. There's a lot of stuff about our political system that I think is broken and flawed. However, that still does not mean that I won't make sure I vote. I will always vote, because this sticker is more than just a little, hey, I voted. This is a sign that I take my democracy seriously. I hope you do too. Make sure you cast your vote. And with that, I'll see y'all next time from my front porch.